Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm Combat Craig, and on this channel I talk about VA claims, the VA claims process. Today we're going to talk about favorable findings, and I'm going to use an example, throw it up on the screen, and explain what's missing from this claim. So you file a claim with the VA, and then you wait for 5 or 6 months, and then you get a decision letter back, and if you didn't get the rating you are going after, the decision letter is going to tell you, what you were missing. So favorable findings, in my opinion, is misleading, but that's what they call it. So let's look through this and see what's favorable about these findings. If you want to learn more about the VA claims process, check out my boot camp. And if you need medical evidence, like in this case where he's missing the Nexus, hit up my med team. There's an email address in the description. All right, let's look at the favorable findings here. So the evidence shows that a qualifying event, injury, or disease had its onset during your service. Service treatment records show lower back pain on January 10th, 1975. So you filed a claim, right? You need a current diagnosis, current symptoms, and a Nexus. They're conceding that there's a qualifying event and some mentions in your service treatment records. What we're trying to do here is make the link between this disability we're filing a claim for here to these dates. This is called the Nexus. This is the link. So you need a current diagnosis over here. You need to have symptoms. That's where the rating comes from. And you need the Nexus to get across and go back to these service treatment records. And just as an aside, this service treatment records are from 1975. That's a long time ago. So that in itself is a problem. I'm not saying it's unwinnable. I'd file a secondary claim if I was out for 45 years. They're just easier to win because the VA is going to be, wondering what happened in 75, 76, right? All the 90s, 2000s, 2010. Like what happened in this big, gigantic swath of time? You were fine. That's kind of the way the VA looks at it. If we don't go in for treatment and we don't file a claim, then there's no disability. That's just the way they look at it. It's infuriating, but that's what we have until we change the system. So that, that's working against you as well. But moving on, you have been diagnosed with a disability. VA contract examination from QTC dated January 26, 2023 shows a diagnosis of lumbosacral spine, degenerative disc disease, invertebral disc syndrome, and scoliosis. Back to the 3 things you need to win a claim. Current diagnosis. Right there, you have been diagnosed with a disability. There's your current diagnosis. Current symptoms, they're not addressed on here because this claim wasn't approved. They don't even need to address the symptoms. That comes after you bring the current diagnosis and the Nexus. What is missing here is the Nexus. So that's why favorable findings is misleading. They'll say like, these are favorable, and they actually are favorable. I guess that's why they do it. But like when you get denied, it's like, why don't you tell me what I was missing? Because this clearly to me, without a doubt, is missing a Nexus. You have this, it would be helpful. You don't have this, go get a Nexus. That would be helpful, but they don't do it. So we have to kind of figure it out. So this means if you won the diagnosis, you don't need to work on the diagnosis anymore. Should a diagnosis be enough? Yes, in real life, civilian world, a diagnosis is pretty much what people work on. When you have a treating physician, what's wrong with me? Whatever I'm doing, I need a diagnosis. Okay, now I know what's wrong with me, and now we can fix it, or it's not fixable or whatever. When you're filing a claim, you have to add in the Nexus, and that's what makes this confusing. If you want to learn more about the VA claims process, check out my boot camp. And if you need medical evidence, like in this case where he's missing the Nexus, hit up my med team. There's an email address in the description. So we need a Nexus here. You have a service treatment records, you have an in-service event, and you have a diagnosis, but you do not have a doctor with a medical opinion saying that this current diagnosis in 2023 is a result from these service treatment records and this in-service event in 1975. And again, you need to get that. But the other thing, going a little bit farther down the rabbit hole, they're going to fight you on the last 45 years, even when you show up with a Nexus. And then going down a little bit further, this is a back pain claim. File whatever claim that you want to file. This is your claim. You're in charge of your own destiny with your veterans benefits. You earned them, you served, all that kind of stuff, but you do have to prove it. But along that path, what are you going after? Are you going after a higher rating so you could get paid more money, more benefits? Maybe you're not service connected at all and you're trying to get to 30% so you get dependent pay. Usually there's some kind of upward momentum. So not all back claims, just most of them. If you're not familiar with the criteria and you don't meet the criteria for any rating, you could go get a Nexus, win this claim, and get 0% because your back's not that bad, according to the VA. In reality, your back's bad. You go to a real doctor, they're going to be like, dude, I can't even believe you're still walking. But the way the VA laws are written, the rating criteria, the 38 CFR, it's, 0, you have this, 10, you have this, 20, you have this, 40, you're dead and your back's broken in half, and 100's this. I don't have the back ratings in front of me, but you should look at your disability. Is it even worth filing a claim for? It sucks and it's ludicrous that you have to make these kind of calculations before you file a disability claim, but that's what the VA is doing. They use the combined ratings table and they throw all sorts of hurdles in there. So make sure this claim is the best claim that you can file and you want to fight. So there's something there for you to fight for. If you're just fighting for 0% or 10%, that seems like a waste of time to me. One exception would be if you're at 94% and you need to get to 95 to get 100 and you need 1 point, which equals 10 points on the combined rating table. That's when I would fight this one. Most of the time, I wouldn't even bother with this claim. But again, this is me. I give you guys my input, what I see, what works, and then it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. So when you file your claim, you build it up front. You get your current diagnosis on paper. You don't wonder if you have it. You see it on paper with a diagnostic code, right? Because your doctor wrote you a diagnosis. And then you move over to the symptoms and you've checked the rating criteria and your symptoms, you already checked. This one will get me 20% if I win it. Winning is a whole different thing, but at least if I get to where I'm supposed to go, 20%. The doctor says right there, he wrote my diagnostic code and my symptoms. And he said that my disability that I currently have and am filing a claim for is linked to my service. Secondary service connection basis, presumptive, pre-existing, direct, or 1151 claim. One of those 5 ways. That's how you establish service connection. You have to pick that right too. So you can get the diagnosis and the Nexus at QTC, VES, or LHI, which is now Optum. And he did get a diagnosis here, but it didn't really, it's a step further. Just think if he would have gone and got the diagnosis, the symptoms, and the Nexus up front, then he would have just won this. So understand what you're doing up front before you file a claim. Don't just hand this off to a VSO and not know what's going on. You need to be involved. This is your money, right? Nobody is affected by your money except for you. So nobody really cares because they're getting their money. However they, do that work, or, maybe it's another disabled veteran. So you need to, take stock in your claim and, what is my chances of getting the increase I'm going after? This is where I'm going for. How do I shouldn't file a claim for this. I should file a claim for that, right? Balance all that stuff out and bring everything up front before you file your claim so you have something to appeal. On this one, he has to go back, get a Nexus, and file a supplemental claim. That may or may not work. But again, if this is only going to be 10% and it's $100 a month and it costs money to go get a Nexus because your VA doctor won't write one for you, there's better ways to spend that money, in my opinion. So favorable findings, yes, they are favorable, but it's tricky wordsmithery. The VA does it. And thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.